Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Dragon Lord by James Eggebeen. Narrated by B.J. Harrison. Chapter 1. The city of Froston sat between two forks of the Eldwise River, which brought rich soil from the Deadlands and fertilized the surrounding farms. It was a prosperous land. The folk of Froston went about their business much like the folk of any other city. Froston was unremarkable, save for one feature that distinguished it from most other towns and cities. In the center of the town rose a spire that was visible for leagues around. At the top of the spire was a sword, gold and glowing. It thrust itself from the tower into the morning sky to catch the rays of the rising sun. The tower itself was grand, stone masonry at its finest. It scraped the sky, threatening the very clouds. All in all, the Temple of Ran was a marvel to behold. Its wealth was rumored to be greater even than the king who claimed the land. In the temple, beneath that spire, sat a lone figure. Thin and gaunt, with a bird-like nose, he rested his shaved head in his hands as he pondered the events that had befallen him. He'd been so close. After summers of searching, he had found the girl in the fire, the one he'd contacted so long ago, the one that signaled the awakening of his magic. The event that set his life on a path he never imagined it would take. He had been called to Amedon to learn magic, and while not fully accepted there, at least he was respected, until a feud with another student had cost him everything. He'd been banished from Amedon, not just banished, but ostracized and hunted, hounded as he tried to make a new life for himself. Covert assassins sent against him. Yet how could it have been anything but fate, or the workings of Ran, that had led him back home, back to the girl of his dreams? For a time, Sulrad thought that he and Roshekwa would lead the temple together. But that dream, too, was shattered. The appearance of another wizard drove a wedge between them. It was only when Sulrad attempted to dispatch the pair that he discovered their fates were linked. Their blood was mingled. Their magic was mingled. Their lives were inexorably linked, and that protected all three of them. There was no way Amedon was going to kill Sulrad now, not when it would mean the demise of the most powerful wizard and sorceress to emerge from the wizard city in generations. No, as much as he hated it, he, Roshekwa, and Zimosum were fated to live. He tried to convince himself that it had put a stop to their meddling, that the attempts to assassinate him would cease, and he could live his life as he pleased. But the thought that he would never be safe, that he could never complete his temple, nagged at him. How could he serve Ran if he was hunted and thwarted at every turn? He may have stopped the threats on his life, but the wizards in Amedon were clever. They could attack everything he held dear, leaving him with nothing. A failure. Ran didn't like failures. He shuddered at the thought of what sort of punishment Ran might inflict on him. A rap sounded at his door. "Father, it's time." Sulrad glanced at the acolyte. She was young, barely old enough to have the magic come awaken her, yet the signs were there. She was not powerful. She would never be more than a healer, but that mattered not. She would carry the beneficence of Ran to the people who needed it the most. She would be a healer and a disciple. She would spread the word of Ran and the news of his mercy. Ordinary people, working people, would come to the temple because of her and those like her. Bringing the wealthy to Ran was something that took more power that Sulrad alone wielded. Not for the last time, he wondered if he would ever find another to share his burden. He was tired, weary. But carrying Ran's words to the masses was his task. He would not fail. Best put a smile on his face and get to it. "I'll be right there." He stood and brushed his robes, letting his fingers smooth out the wrinkle in the black cloth trimmed in gold. His official robes were heavy and rich. They made him uncomfortable, not only because of the cost of the material, but because of what they symbolized. It was a sin to possess more than he needed, the worst sort of sin. Yet here he was. He had grudgingly accepted the robes only because Ignal, his faithful aide and closest confidant, had told him time and time again that it was not he who owned his vestments, but Ran himself. Ran could not sin, so it was no sin to possess them. Yet it made Sulrad uncomfortable. Only his refusal to wear small clothes beneath his vestments made it tolerable. He might wear rich clothes, but no more than was completely necessary. Sulrad followed the acolyte to the main hall. "How are the crowds?" "Very good, Father. The faithful have gathered as you instructed." "Good. You may go." Sulrad drew a breath and composed himself. No matter how often he spoke before a crowd, it still made him anxious. He could tell himself that they were not here to listen to his words, that they were here for Ran. None of that mattered. It was he, Sulrad, who had to step onto the dais and speak, and that frightened him just a little every time he had to do it. He peered out from behind the curtain that separated the corridor from the main hall. The crowd was indeed large, larger than usual. He made a brief motion with his fingers, creating the spell that would carry his voice to the back of the great hall. It was time. No more waiting. He had a job to do, and he would do it. Approaching the dais, he raised his arms. Ran welcomes all. Ran embraces all. Ran showers his blessings on all. As he lowered his hands and stepped up to the podium, the crowd roared, repeating the litany he had initiated. When the voices quieted, he began as he had done so many times before. Today, he had chosen to speak on the mysteries of Ran, and how one never knew what Ran had in store. The person who lost a son? It was truly a sad thing, but perhaps Ran was making room in that family for a stranger that needed their help. The man who had lost his fortune? Perhaps Ran had seen the path he was on and how it led to destruction, and had shown mercy by setting him on a better path, one that would end in an eternal reward far greater than any earthly wealth. Sulrad drew from his own life, and as he spoke, the burden of his past seemed to fade. Was his sermon meant for the faithful or for him? He rarely knew precisely what he was going to say when he preached. He preferred to let Ran speak through him. Today it was as if Ran were speaking not through him but to him. It was just what he needed. When he finished, he blessed the faithful, performed a few small healings, and then begged leave of the crowd. Returning to his quarters, he found Ignal busying herself, straightening the bed covers, and polishing the few decorations he had permitted her to place there. That was quite a sermon. The diminutive woman slid out a chair and motioned to it. She would never admit it, but craning her neck to look up at him while they spoke made her uncomfortable, and that was the last thing he wanted. He took the seat and loosened the collar on his robe. Not my words, Ran's. Yes, but it was still a great sermon. Just what you needed to hear, wasn't it? You know me so well. Sulrad looked her over. She wore white robes trimmed in silver. Her hair, so beautiful when long, had been shorn and shaved in imitation of his own. She was strikingly beautiful. When they had first met, she had worn heavy face paint. Now she wore only a smudge on her lips. He preferred her that way. Is it true, what you said? Have you come to accept things as they are? And not what I wished them to be? Sulrad smiled. That was what she meant. She had so often reminded him that Ran cared for him. Ran had chosen him. Ran had a plan for him. And who was he to argue? It's a brilliant turn of events. Only one as powerful and beneficent as Ran could devise. You three are bound together. You and the temple. Them and Amedon. Neither one can ever hope to win out against the other. A truce, stronger than any treaty between two warring empires. You see that, don't you? This is Ran's way of telling you that it's time. Time to get serious about his work. Time to put the past behind you. Time to think of the future. And the future is grand. I see temples of Ran springing up in every city in the land. Even the hamlets will have their own temples. Not grand structures like in the big cities, but grand nonetheless. Ran will become lord of the land. He will bring his word to everyone. She grabbed his hand and enfolded it between hers. Her fingers were short and stubby, but powerful, her grip like a blacksmith's. I'm not so sure I have the strength to do what he desires of me. Even the simple healings after the sermon took a lot out of me. I'm not entirely healed from the wounds those two inflicted. I fear I have not seen the last of Amedon meddling in my life. Yet you survived, she said. Ran healed you. He has great plans for you. Indeed he does. And who am I to argue? Who indeed? She tugged on his arm. Come, I want you to see something. What, can't you explain it? No, you need to see it, to experience it firsthand. Sulrad expected her to drag him along the streets, to show him some shop or building she had taken a fancy to. But instead, she took him to the spire. To be true, few ever ascended the stairs that lined the inside of the great tower. 1,000 cubits tall, the spire dwarfed everything around it. That was the idea. The great spire was an ever-present reminder of Ran. No one could avoid it. No one could escape it. No one could ignore it. Yet climbing those heights wasn't the sort of thing one did every day. The ascent took forever, and Sulrad's legs were tired when they finally reached the top. The tower swayed ever so slightly in the wind as the clouds whipped by overhead. Even the stones were not immune to the forces of nature. The workmen had constructed an external viewing platform, from which Sulrad could see the entirety of the town below. It made him feel small. Strange how that was. From this vantage point, he expected to feel powerful. But he didn't. The sheer immensity of the task of bringing Ran's word to the people was almost too much, and seeing the city all at once just made him feel all the more inadequate to the task. Sulrad peered down at the city below. It made him dizzy to think of how high up they were. Ignol tugged at his sleeve. Over there. She pointed off into the distance, toward the place where the sun set this time of the season. Sulrad followed her finger. There was nothing there. Nothing but plains and grass on the horizon. Jagged peaks of distant mountains jutted for the horizon, barely visible through the gathering fog. Below, the town stretched out to the sea. Houses of stone and wood huddled around the castle walls as if for warmth. Most of them were dark, but a few sported light where the evening fires had already been set. He picked out a few buildings he knew. The homes of his wealthier patrons were easy to find. They tended to take up more land than those surrounding them. "Do you see them?" Ignal interrupted. "See who?" "Not who, what?" "I don't see anything." "White peaks, sticking up from the horizon, just there, too close together, taller than the rest." Sulrad focused his attention where she described. There were two identical peaks, taller than the rest. Was this what she had dragged him up here to see? Some far-off mountains? "You see them?" She bounced with excitement. "Yes, I believe so." "That's my home," she said. "And do you see how the snow line on one peak is higher than on the other?" Sulrad studied the two peaks. One did have snow farther down than the other. Some trick of the mountains? The path of the sun? What did it matter? "I think I see it. Why are you so excited about that?" "The snow. When it's high like that, it means they are close to the surface. They are back. They have been deep inside the earth, but now they're back. They're home." "Whose home?" "My family." "I don't understand." She had told him the tale of how her family had abandoned her, first for bonding with a human, then for spawning a physically deformed son. He thought she had put that behind her. So why was she so excited about their return? "It means I can go home." Sulrad heard the trembling in her voice. Ignal was his rock, his steadying hand. She never showed signs of uncertainty. But at this moment it was clear that she was worried. He might even say she was afraid. Of her family? She had told him of their poor relationship, but he hadn't truly considered what that meant to her. Her hands gripped the railing, knuckles white, not from fear of heights, but with the thought that her family had returned. He leaned toward her as her words were ripped from her by the gathering winds. "I can teach them about Ran," she said. "I can remove the stain of their sin once and for all." Chapter 2. Sulrad stood, gazing at the distant mountain peaks. The haze was thickening, and it was nearly impossible to see them any longer. The wind had turned damp, and clouds gathered overhead. It made him nervous to be up on the spire in the rain. He'd seen what lightning did. Were it not for the heavy braided copper cable that stretched from the ground to the massive spear mounted atop the spire, the tower would have been destroyed half a dozen times. He had no desire to witness the wrath of Ran this close. He tugged on Ignal's arm to let her know he was ready to descend. She told him how her people rejected her for birthing a son with a defect. But Sulrad had cured that. Was that what she meant? Was that why she could go home? But how would they know? The boy's father had stolen him away when he learned his son was no longer a monster. How could her folk know of that? Sulrad had so many questions, but the trek down the spire was taxing. He wasn't completely healed, and harbored a secret worry that he might never be. Better to keep his peace until the time was right. He knew Ignal well enough to know that badgering her with questions rarely led to anything good. By the time they reached the ground, Sulrad had put Ignal's worries out of his thoughts. She often reminded him that there was always time for renewal, even when things looked dark. He had his whole life ahead of him. Ran had work for him to do, but he had lost focus. He knew that now. He would return to that work, and Ran would bless him once more. Rather than retire to his rooms after the grueling climb, Sulrad made his way to the private gathering room where the temple staff ate. The cooks were experts in preparing meals without meat, even though they tended to overspice every dish. The dining area functioned as an informal gathering room where the faithful congregated to hear his words. "Call everyone together," Sulrad told Ignal. "Tell them I have word from Ran that they urgently need to hear." "As you wish." Ignal departed, and soon the staff started to trickle in. There were guards, gardeners, maids, cook staff, carpenters, acolytes in light blue robes, and laypersons who did not wear the robes of the priesthood, but common clothes. They sported hair shorn to half a digit in length. What was missing was another priest. No one sported the black robes of the priesthood, not one. Some of the acolytes had proven the ability to wield magic in small ways, young men and women who could one day make passable healers, but none with true strength. Surely he was not the only one who possessed powers on a grand scale. Those few wizards he had brought into the temple had been spies sent to do him harm. Perhaps that was over now. With Amedon tamed, he could recruit those with power and train them up as priests. It would take part of the burden off him and allow him to focus on bringing the word of Ran to those who most desperately needed it. Sulrad surveyed those assembled before him. Who would have thought he would one day be responsible for so many folks? The temple fed them and their families. They in turn served Ran, but it was Sulrad who was responsible for them. If he failed, they starved. It was sobering. "You may know that we have faced troubles in the past, but those are in the past." He stepped up on a chair so they could all see him. "A new day has dawned. The wizards of Amedon are restrained like the dogs they are." Sulrad shuddered inwardly. He wasn't certain he spoke the truth, but that was not what his people needed to hear. "We no longer have to fear them. Ran has brought us through this trial and prepared us for the days ahead. I have a task for each and every one of you. I wish you to seek out those with power, wizards and sorceresses. Find them, bring them here, so that we may present them to Ran and they can do his work." He paused and pointed at one of the layfolk. "Do you have a nephew or niece who show signs of the power? Bring them here. Let Ran see that you are faithful." He pointed at an acolyte in light blue robes. "Do you have a younger sister? Keep an eye on her. When the time comes, if the power awakens in her, bring her here." "Do you know what those dogs in Amedon do? When they find one with power, they command them to wander the land for moons on end. Alone, untaught. They send these young wizards out into the wilds to learn to control their magic. And why?" He paused, looking over the astonished faces. "Because young wizards are dangerous until they learn to control their magic. The cowards up in their lofty towers are not hoping to train these wizards. They are hoping that the young wizards learn on their own or die trying. Half of those who are set on this path do die, some by their own hand, others by mishap." The staff was fidgeting now, He was making them uncomfortable. Good. They needed to be uncomfortable. Needed a kick in the backside to get them going. You have magic. He jutted his chin at another acolyte. Tell everyone how you came to be here. Yes, Father. The young boy nodded and looked around, clearly uncomfortable. Go on. Tell them your story. I had a dream one night. I was lighting the cook fire. I woke to screaming. My folks were throwing water on the curtains in our home. They'd caught fire. The acolyte hung his head. I almost killed my family. And you? Sulrad jabbed his finger at another acolyte. I was always good with the animals. They came to me when they were injured. I cared for them. One day our cat got too close to a kine while it was being milked. The kine stepped on the poor cat's leg and broke it. I cried. I picked it up and soothed it. It was in so much pain, I could hardly stand it. I stroked its leg, and I grew all warm inside. It was strange, but it felt right. I grew dizzy as the magic came to life. When things calmed down, the cat was fine. Its leg was straight. I'd healed it. The girl looked around as if searching for someone. After that, my ma, she said I was a healer and brought me here. The girl smiled. And she was right. I am a healer. See? No two stories are the same. Out there, somewhere, there is a young boy or a girl who has just had the power awaken in them. Find them. Tell them of Ran, and how we are training young wizards and sorceresses. We're not afraid of a budding new wizard. We welcome them, encourage them. We will keep them safe. Sulrad cast a quick glance at the boy who had started a fire in his own house. Them and those around them. You are Ran's servants. Find those with power. Bring them here. We need each and every one of you to do your best, and when you do, the temple will grow, and more will hear of Ran and benefit from his mercy. Sulrad jabbed a finger at the floor beneath him. This is what we have been called to do. This is what Ran has brought us here for. He will bless your efforts. Of that I am certain. He jumped down from the chair, planning to leave immediately and retire to his personal quarters. But the staff was having none of it. They crowded around him, reaching out to touch him. I have a nephew, one said. And me, a brother, another one added. I know of a girl. She is also good with animals. I'll bring her here, another added. Perhaps he had been a bit hasty. When you do find them, bring them to Ignal. She will arrange for them to be tested. If they have the power, they will be welcomed into the fold. He held up his hands. Now I really must retire. It's been a long day, and I have prayers to make. Please, Father. The acolyte who had given her testimony about the animals grabbed at his hand. Pray over us. You are Ran's hand on earth, his voice. Please bless us with his words. Sulrad paused. He hadn't considered praying over his staff. He was so used to keeping his devotions to himself that it had never occurred to him. Perhaps this was something he should have thought of earlier. To the great hall, he said. What are you doing? Ignal said, taking up step beside him. Evening prayers. Should I add these to your schedule? Ignal asked. It seems like a good idea. Ignal studied his face. She had that look about her, the one that said she was more in tune with what he needed than he was. I think it's a great idea. Every evening, just after the evening meal? Yes, that should do. And in the morning, before the morning meal. I will see to it. Ignal stepped aside as Sulrad stepped up to the dais. He raised his arms and began. Ran, bless you. Ran, keep you safe. As he uttered the words, he felt...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?